So there is this awareness.
Yeah.
But then there's also this issue about, well, what do we do about it? Where do we gather and protest? And they've got the concentration camps already built. They just passed a new legislation, HR 645, to build more and to bring out in the open the ones that they've already built. So the question becomes, and I'm sure that you've got answers to this because I know some of your work, you do have answers. And what do we as a people do to resist this and to bring about a better world that truly does exist for the betterment of mankind?
Well, how long you got? I can talk on the here and now everyday experience level, which I probably should first, but there's much deeper things that we need to do to ourselves to really change this asylum into the paradise it could be.
I'm going to take a leap with our audience and just go ahead and assume that we're dealing with a little bit above normal knowledge about this stuff with the crowd that's going to watch this. And maybe we can go ahead and go a little deeper into solutions, possible outcomes, and really what can we do about it? How can we change it?
Well, first of all, let's talk on a practical level. What they've done is persuaded us that the power in a pyramid is the capstone, right? That's what they're persuaded. What do we do? Oh, the power's there. Who's holding it there? What's holding a capstone of a pyramid where it is? The rest of the pyramid. And that's what we do. We hold this system together through acquiescence, through watching the Super Bowl and the game shows and not thinking about actually anything else that's happening in the world. And we get told that we have to consume and consume. I mean, I heard somebody call it, and he was right. He called the American economy a consumer-led economy.
Oh, absolutely.
What does that mean?
It's the church of consumerism.
That means you have to keep consuming more and more and more just to stand still. That's what it means. And of course, once people stop consuming more, and the banks control if they do or not, because they're controlling the circulation of money and how much is in circulation, not that the money itself is an illusion too. It means that the banks are controlling by how much so-called money they put into circulation, how much consumers can consume. So what they do is they put lots of money out there, as Greenspan and his clan did, and there was lots of consumption and lots of people got into debt to consume more, and then they go, okay, we're pulling vast amounts of money out of circulation. What did they call it? The credit crunch. Now, suddenly, all the consumption, and it's a consumer-led economy,
right,
starts to crash. So what happens? The economy crashes. And it is so simple because these guys control all the things they need to get a consumer boom. Oh, no consumer boom, we're having a depression now. Purely by putting money into circulation and pulling it out again. And so we are holding this whole system together by playing its game and by not even often even thinking about how it works and what's actually happening. So we can find a solution to the problem, and we're drowning in solutions. Or we can do the sensible thing, which is to remove the cause of the problem. And the cause of the problem is our acquiescence to this system. The number of people who are in full awareness manipulating this conspiracy are a relative handful compared with the 6.5 billion they are manipulating. I see a way out of this, but only if we, first of all, drop the fault lines through which we're divided and ruled. Divide and rule is the bottom line essential to any centralized dictatorship, because they have to divide people in on themselves along the fault lines of religion, political persuasion, not that that matters when you get deeper into it, just different masks on the same face, through income bracket, through race. All these are fault lines through which they set the people at war with each other while they're pulling the strings on all sides. So first thing, it doesn't matter what your color is. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish or Muslim or middle-class American or Southern Baptist or if you are sky blue, bloody pink. It doesn't matter what your income bracket is, beyond the real elite of the elite. It doesn't matter what your political persuasion is, because they are after total control of all of us, right? Now, if we go on fighting, whoa, he's a Republican, oh, well, he's a Democrat, and all this rubbish, oh, I'm a Christian, oh, I'm a Muslim, and all this stuff, therefore you don't come together and in unity and face what is massively affecting all of us, and our children and grandchildren, by the way. Try telling them when the police state's in place and they're microchipped and all the other stuff. What were you doing, Mummy and Daddy, when this came in? Oh, I was arguing over Bush and Obama. Oh, I was arguing that Muslims were better than Christians.
I was watching Britney's comeback tour. Right.
It's pathetic, right? So the first thing we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is frickin' grow up, right? Because we owe it to our children and grandchildren to grow up and start coming together and start facing the fact that we are looking in the face of a global version of Nazi Germany within the lifetimes of adults today, well within the lifetimes of them. And goodness knows what it's going to be like for our kids and grandkids if we go on being sheep. You look at a herd of sheep, a massive herd of sheep. How do you control them? One shepherd, one sheepdog can do it, right? And what does the sheepdog represent? Fear. The shepherd represents authority, okay? That's how the global population is controlled, through fear of stepping out of the box and expressing the full magnitude of who we are, instead of, oh, I'm just Joe Public, I've got no power, and allowing authority to dictate just because it's authority, right? So we need to come together, and we need to stop cooperating. I keep reading, as I've traveled around America in the last 2 months, of stunning levels, hundreds of thousands a month, and more, and growing all the time, of people whose houses are being foreclosed, right, by the banks. And they're leaving their homes. They're leaving their houses. What's going on? Let's look at this. Take a deep breath, take a step back. The bank's behavior caused the crash that has meant that these people are losing their homes and therefore cannot afford the mortgages and the rents, and therefore their homes are being foreclosed by, complete the circle, the banks who created the problem. And people are leaving their homes because the banks say you must stay where you are. If hundreds of thousands all over the United States, all over the world, vast numbers and getting bigger all the time as this crash goes on, if they stayed put and said we ain't moving, the system couldn't cope. The system can only cope if we acquiesce and say, well, the banks that caused the problem have told me to leave, so I've got to leave.
So that's one nuts and bolts thing that people could actually do on an individual basis. They could do it sooner than later, and that is a tangible thing with very little repercussions.
When the bailiffs come, everyone, see, this is the other big thing. People go, well, it's not my problem, so I'm looking this way, right? Right. First they came for the Jews, and I was not a Jew, so I did nothing. Then they came for the communists, and I was not a communist, so I did nothing. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I was not a trade unionist, so I did nothing. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Nazi Germany. That's what that incredibly powerful piece of text was referring to. That's how they did it. So we'll pick you off first. It's not my problem. Well, then we'll pick these. Well, that's not my problem either. Knock, knock, knock. Now it is your problem. Who's going to speak out for me? Oh, sorry. They're all in the concentration camps, darling. Right? So this is how it's done. So as Martin Luther King rightly said, you know, injustice for all injustice is injustice for everybody. For instance, if I don't have the right to speak my truth through freedom of speech, no one else has the right to freedom of speech. It's gone. Because if I don't have the right, or anyone doesn't have the right to speak their truth openly, then it means that everyone else's freedom of speech is not freedom of speech at all. It's only the freedom to stay within the parameters that this guy's come outside of, or I've come outside of, or whatever. So when one person is not free, no one is free. So it's in our interest to make sure freedom is applied to everyone. So when the bailiffs come, let's get the neighbors out. Circle the place. We've got to start making it as difficult as possible for the few to dictate and enslave the many. And we can do it. But we must do it peacefully. Which is why I'm banging out stuff across the net now, actually, about don't riot. Please don't riot. It's just what they want.
Right.
If we react in that violent, aggressive kind of way, then we're walking straight into the trap. We need to have non-violent, non-cooperation, and have a smile on our faces. We don't have to hurl abuse at the agents of the state. We don't have to kind of be violent and all the rest of it. We just have to symbolically and literally lock arms and saying we're not having it. We're not having it. It's what I call the non-comply dance. Compliance, compliance. No, non-comply dance. Let's beat to a different drum, beat to a different awareness, beat to a different perception of who we are. Instead of the dark beat of compliance, let's beat to another drum, which says no, we're not going to comply, but we're not going to get aggressive and we're not going to get violent, because that's your job, right? If we want to change the world from what it is, then we can't react in the way the world is now that we want to change. You see this all the time. You have violent revolutions to overcome the established order. And what happens? Because violence has removed the established order, you get the same, under another name, you get the same kind of regime that you've just replaced. This has happened all the way through. If we want to have a peaceful world, then we need to be peaceful. I keep hearing people, we must fight for peace. No. It's the biggest contradiction you could come across.
A total oxymoron, right?
We must peace for peace. But, and I'm not, talking about, being what people would perceive as weak. Because you have to be, if you're going to be macho and a real man, you have to riot and you have to be aggressive and you have to hurl abuse at the police and all the rest of it, right? No. I'm not talking about being weak, and as soon as you're told to move, okay, we better move. No, I'm talking about coming from this position of love for each other, including the people that we're trying to change, and the situation we're trying to change, with peace and with an absolute, unshakable, unbreakable determination. Never in any circumstances to concede our right and the right of anyone else to freedom, justice, and fairness. Because you don't have to, riot and be violent to have the determination, we ain't moving. And when I've been in Sedona, I saw a magnificent documentary at the film festival. It was called Pray the Devil Back to Hell. And I watched it and I thought, this is such a fantastic kind of example of what I'm talking about. It was about a civil war in Liberia in West Africa that was so grotesque and so extreme that people were seeing their husband having his head cut off in front of him, his wife and his children. They were seeing their children raped in front of them. They were seeing grotesque violence on a level that beggars belief. And this went on for year after year after year. And all sides were just different masks on the same face. They were all after personal power and the macho man stuff. And then a woman said enough. And then another woman said enough. And they gathered around them. First of all, about 200 women said enough. And eventually it was 3,000. And they did three things which are unstoppable if we do them. One, they said enough, and crucially, they meant it. Two, they were not going to take no for an answer, i.e. the war ends and peace arrives, no matter how long it took or what sacrifices it took to get there. And thirdly, another crucial aspect, they got Christian women and Muslim women and women from different ethnic groups to come together as one behind the unity of we want peace. They started peacefully protesting, all non-violent, in crucial places where the government could see them and all the rest of it. They started blockades and all this classic non-violent, non-cooperation methods of resisting tyranny. Eventually, it's a long story, but eventually they got all sides to the negotiating table, peace talks in Ghana. And there for 7 weeks, these men negotiated, or rather didn't, while the violence went on and they would not call a ceasefire. Some of them had never been in 5-star hotels before. They wanted the peace talks to last as long as possible because they were enjoying it, while slaughter went on back at home. So 200 of the women who were in Ghana, including the key one that orchestrated it, they went there, locked arms, and they blocked the entrance or the exit to the room where the peace talks were going on, or weren't. And they wouldn't let them out. And they said, we're not letting you out until you call a ceasefire and the peace talks reach a settlement. Someone inside called security, who came along to arrest this lady because she was obstructing justice. Ironic, but true.
Right.
And what she did then, she started to strip naked. And in West Africa, that is considered to be a massively powerful curse if you as a man see a woman stripped naked in public. And if she does it on purpose, that's even worse. So she starts to strip naked, massive panic. And she said, everyone's going to do it if this doesn't happen. Well, as she said, they would have given us the world rather than see us all stripped naked, right? Within 2 weeks, they had a peace settlement. And I think it was 2 years later, the first woman leader of an African country, elected leader, was in place in Liberia. Those women did not fire one gun. They did not injure anyone, and they were in no way violent. And they took 3 warring factions of incredibly extreme, grotesque, horrific violence that they were all engaged in. And they brought them to the negotiating table, and they brought an end to it. Liberia is still not perfect, far, far from it, but at least they did that. Now, if one woman who became 2, who became 200, who became 3,000 can do that, what the heck are we doing? Cooperating with our own enslavement. Please, would someone tell me that? Maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'm thick, but I can't work that one out. And I keep hearing people, Ron, saying to me, but there's nothing we can do. No, okay. You tell that to the women of Liberia, right? No, I tell you what, there's nothing we can do actually means I ain't prepared to do anything. That's what the translation means.
Yeah, it's the apathy more than
Yes,
the inability.
it's an excuse not to do it. So come on, you know, this is not sometime never over the rainbow. It's happening in our daily experience now.
And it's, you know, that's another thing that maybe we could touch on is it isn't a matter of getting 5,000 people together. It's a matter of one person making one decision for themselves and then more people doing the exact same thing. So I think people see this big mountain that has to be at least climbed for the voices to be heard. And what I really want to stress, and what I hear you say over and over again, is it all starts with that individual personal decision.
Well, this is where we can get deeper into this, because Albert Einstein said words to this effect. The quote is, you know, sometimes quoted in different ways, but the meaning's the same. You cannot solve problems with the same level of consciousness that created them. What we're doing all the time is we're having problems created by levels of consciousness, and those people are then replaced by other people of the same level of consciousness, sometimes optimistically the same level of consciousness, and then they think they're going to solve the problems. They're not.